Hello and welcome to the Academy Pod. It's a special one tonight. We're going to look forward to the weekend's Old Firm game at Ibrox. And we'll kind of go through the team, maybe pick out one or two players to look out for. Maybe not the normal faces like Alex Lowry and Tony West and Charlie McCann, Leon King. There is obviously other players in that team that that have played well this season. Joined by Kerr. How's it going, mate?
I'm alright, Wally. Back on again. The folk
I
get
know,
fed
mate.
up.
You love these pods.
Folk get fed up seeing my face and hearing my voice, but sometimes there's nobody else to come on. So if I didn't come on me, you wouldn't be doing it. So hopefully they appreciate me on night.
Well, probably not, to be fair, but that's another
Probably
thing.
not. No.
Right, let's just kind of start for the back then, and we'll work our way forward. I'm looking to think that it's probably going to be Jay Hogarth in goals.
Yeah.
I think Jay's had a pretty good season. Obviously, his older brother Nicky left the club in the summer and went to Nottingham Forest and has been playing for their under-23s. Seems to be doing quite well. The other option is Lewis Budanauskas. But I would imagine if Jay's fit and ready to play, he starts. He's a pretty reliable goalie, Jay. In between the sticks this season, he's been excellent, to be honest with you. Doesn't make many handling errors, doesn't make many mistakes in general. I would imagine he is probably the starting goalkeeper.
I quite like him, to be honest with you, Willie. I've seen him a few times and I think he's a decent young keeper. And obviously, he's still learning, but every time I've seen him, he's done okay. He's never let the side down, really made any mistakes. So, is that Miles Hogarth's son?
It is indeed, mate. Aye,
Aye.
it is. Aye. I mean, the thing is also they do. I mean, they've got Aaron Cervantes here, but Aaron's played so little this season that I would imagine it probably is going to be Jay. But I'll come to you on the two fullbacks. Obviously, it's players that we've kind of spoken about partially this season, Adam Devine and Robbie Fraser. How important do you think those two guys will be on Saturday, given how aggressive our fullbacks are in the first team, just like the B team?
I think they will be because I think Celtic's get some decent players out wide, haven't they? They've got
Yeah.
Kalogo Dembele, we might call him. So I know he's decent in the last game I watched the Old Firm game. I know you said it was at Clyde or somewhere about that.
Yeah.
I watched it on yesterday. Watched it online. They were quite Celtic were quite effective down the wide area. So I think both the boys will have to win their game going forward, but also defending because Celtic are quite quick. So, but Robbie, every time I've seen Robbie Fraser, he's done okay. To be fair, he gets forward well and he likes a tackle. And Adam Devine's been the same. So I think the two boys will be looking forward to it because they've played each other before. So I think they know what to expect with players like Dembele. So and it's at home, it's at Ibrox, isn't it? They're looking forward to playing a big park at Ibrox and playing in front of a good crowd. So I think the two boys will be looking forward to Saturday, but they will have to win their game because they'll be up against talented boys from across the city.
Yeah, look, I mean, the two fullbacks, though, they're going to be under pressure. Celtic do have some good quality players going forward. I don't know if we'll see Dembele. I think he might have already played more first team games than what is allowed
Right.
in terms of the loan league. So I'm not so sure we'll see him. It'll be interesting to see how they line up, though. They've obviously, Celtic have used quite a young squad this year at
Yeah.
times. So it'll be interesting to see how they line up because they've obviously signed some guys in the January window and in the summer who have become part of the B team. So that will be the interesting one to see. But obviously, we're here to talk about Rangers, so that's a priority. I think one of the big things about the fullbacks for Rangers this season, they've certainly created enough opportunities for other players in the team.
Yeah.
And Robbie is actually, I think Robbie's bagged 4 goals this season, so he's actually done pretty well. I mean, he's never really been known for being like a goal scorer because end of the day, I mean, even when he played in midfield, Robbie was never really
Aye.
like a massive like kind of scorer of goals. But he scored your kind of 4 goals as a left back. I think Adams get 2, so it's not too bad. But certainly their creativity, the way they get up and down the line, the way they get into the box, I think that's important for us. And certainly, the way that we want to play, the fullbacks have to be aggressive. They have to get on the front foot. So, yeah, whoever wins that battle it's going to be important for the game, in my opinion. We'll come on to the two centre backs. I think it'll be Leon King and Kyle McClelland. Obviously, that could change depending on what happens in Belgrade, and if Leon obviously come on, that might change things ahead of
Yeah.
Saturday. But at the moment, we'll say it's Leon and Kyle. Obviously, Leon, he's an exceptional talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kyle's very experienced. I think Kyle's 20 now. He's fairly experienced at the back there. What do you make of that kind of pairing at the back? Do you think that's the strongest pairing that we've got available?
I would I've been to see the youth team. I watched them online. They two have been playing together, so I think that's a pairing it will probably go to. But obviously, you said anything can happen between now and then for Leon being in Belgrade, be it as he gets back later than expected or he's on the park. You just never know. But Leon's one of the ones everybody talks about, isn't he? Whereas Kyle, you see, he's a bit older, but he just gets on with his job and he doesn't really get a mention because everybody talks about Leon. But Kyle's decent as well. Kyle's a good footballer and he is a good defender. But I think the two of them complement each other.
Yeah, I mean, they've played enough, like, obviously, together to have a good partnership. I think that's the one thing you could say. Leon and Kyle overall have had a pretty good season in the Lowland League. Obviously, the argument would be that Kyle played League One out on loan with Falkirk. I think most people think that Leon's a better player than playing in the Lowland League as well.
Yeah.
So the other side of the argument would be is that are they really getting pushed enough in the Lowland League? Well, I think these two games against Celtic that's coming up over the next month is going to be good for them. These are the sort of games the boys want to play in. These are the games that
Aye.
a wee bit of one-upmanship. Obviously, a lot of the guys know each other, so they enjoy beating each other when they get that opportunity. And I'm sure Leon and Kyle will know they've been in a game. Because Celtic do have some, as I said earlier, some pretty good attacking options, and it will be a proper test. But hopefully at Ibrox with pretty much just home supporters. I don't even know if we're going to see any Celtic parents at the game potentially. I mean, the club haven't really said much on that at all, but I think it would be nice if at least the parents were given an option to come and watch the game at
Yeah.
both stadiums. I understand like the no away support in terms of like tickets wise to like people that can go and buy them, given there's been issues in the past. But I think the parents thing should be a non kind of talk. You know what I mean? Like it should be that if your boy's playing, you should be allowed into the game. That's just
Yeah.
my
Two
opinion. I
tickets for
know.
every boy's parents, whatever.
Aye, I mean in the past, like sort of generally there's been like 40 or 50 tickets handed out to both clubs in these kind of games, and
Yeah.
that's how it's worked. That the parents would be sorted out, kind of thing. But it'll be interesting if that happens because I do believe that at the end of the day, for all it's a huge rivalry, it's just as important to the parents to see their sons play. And I
Aye.
think that's important to them. So not allowing them in at the stadium, I think would be disappointing. That's just my opinion, obviously. Um, we'll move on to the midfield three. Hits kind of picked itself at times this year. It feels like Murray Muller is the sitter, is the number
Yeah.
6. Cole's been number 8. Charlie's been 10, but obviously they can kind of tweak that in there at times. What do you make of that midfield three in terms of the attacking threat that Cole and Charlie offer?
I've spoken about Cole the other pod we've done. I really like Cole McKinnon as a footballer. Charlie McCann, we know he's come in, cost a bit of money to bring him in for Man United, and we know what he can offer. And obviously, he come on Sunday for the first team. And Murray, I don't really know a lot about him. I've just seen him a couple of times, but I don't know as much about him as the other two. But they've all looked really good. But I've always been impressed with Cole when I've seen the youth side play. When I've seen the academy team play. He's the one I've always been impressed with. He wasn't the one that everybody always jumps to, but I've always been impressed with his play, box to box, the way he controls the ball. Like I said on our pod, he likes a tackle, but he can shoot as well. I just think his overall game's very good, Cole McCann. But Charlie McCann, you want to make an impression because he forced himself into the first team reckoning.
Of course.
And same with other boy, he wants to make an impression just because other two, you might think he's getting more limelight than he is. And they all want to make an impression. Doesn't matter who you play for, just because they're playing at Ibrox Stadium and I don't know what the crowd will be, maybe 10, 15,000 or something. So that's a big crowd to these boys because they don't usually
Yeah.
play in front of that. They only usually play with 500, 600, maybe a wee bit more. So this is going to be a big crowd for them. It's a big occasion.
Yeah, I think something they could do in that midfield three if they don't want Murray to sit is to put Charlie as a 6, have Cole at 8, and then have Alex playing at 10. I mean, that's another option. It's quite an attacking midfield three, but
Yeah,
I think being at Ibrox, you do have to be the aggressive team.
yeah, you do, yeah.
I mean, if that was to be the case, do you think that would be like a mistake having the 3 attacking players? Because do you think you need that like stability that Murray offers? Murray is a defensive player. He's the one that
Yeah,
basically kind of protects the back four. Do you think it's important that you have players in these type of games?
I think it is, especially if you want the fullbacks to push up. You need somebody from the middle of the park who will just sit or sitting between, even like we see with John Lundstrom, sitting between the two centre backs, and they can spread themselves out to cover the fullbacks. So I think we need somebody to sit. We can't have the three boys constantly attacking, because you know yourself, doesn't matter who you're playing, you're not always going to have 90% of possession, so or 100% of possession. So you want to have somebody sitting just protecting, even just protecting the ball. If the other team get it, and then recycling it back to ourselves. But you need somebody in there. If Murray can do that job, then you have him in there. I'm just going to ask about Charlie Lindsay. Does he play the middle of the park? Is he further forward? Or is he injured?
Charlie has been playing for the 18s generally
18s,
in the last few weeks. But I mean, Charlie's kind of one of those versatile players. He can obviously play in the middle of the park as an 8 or a 10, or he can play wide. I think Charlie's he's one of those kids at this season. He's been kind of caught in between the groups.
Right.
And I think maybe that's not benefited him at times, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I think with Charlie, he would rather play for the B team every week. But I think the way that, like, obviously the addition of Charlie McCann kind of changed things. And then obviously Alex has obviously played a lot for the B team this year. I think there was possibly some chat at the time that Alex could go out and loan and develop a bit further. So maybe if these type of things had happened previously, it might have meant that Charlie would have played a lot more B team games. But I think realistically, I think Charlie will probably be on the bench on Saturday, I would imagine. The 18s do play on Friday at 4:30. It was due to be an 8 o'clock kickoff, but now it's 4:30. So I don't know if that's been Rangers that's put that forward to give the guys more rest between that game and the game on Saturday.
Who's that against? I mean, is it?
The game at the weekend?
No,
the 18s game you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're due to play, let me see if I can try and check. It's Motherwell at the training ground. It is closed door at the moment. All these games are closed door, unfortunately, just due to the ongoing sort of COVID issues. But it was supposed to be an 8 o'clock kickoff. Now it's 4:30. That would probably help some of the players that do play in that game. Guys like Robbie Ewer, maybe Connor Allen, Charlie Lindsay, because they'll probably have to be on the bench on the Saturday. Yeah. So that's something that obviously the club need to think about as well. Let's see, what's one of the questions? Did any of the young guys travel with the first team today? I take it Leon and Alex probably are away. Charlie McCann, I don't think, because he would have to be registered.
Right.
Whereas the other two are like homegrown players. So I don't imagine it would be anybody other than Alex and Leon. I could be wrong because I haven't seen any of the videos today, any of the squads leaving or whatever, but I would imagine those two would be away with the first team. Does Kane Richie Hawk? Kane plays a wee bit everywhere, Stuart, to be honest. Kane's been at fullback this season. He's come on in the middle of the park. He's played as a 10 in behind the striker. He's played wide. Kane's just Mr. Versatile, to be honest. And he's probably been unlucky this year that he's not had a good run of games because they've not really given him a set position. So from that point of view, it's been maybe difficult for Kane. Kane's another one that come the summer, he's out of contract. And it's one of those ones, if he does sign for another year, does he want to play in the Lowland League? Or would you want to send him out and loan to see him develop? Or from Kane's point of view, is it just time to move on somewhere else where he's got a higher chance of playing maybe more first team football somewhere? But, I mean, looking at Kane, he could be somebody that's in the manager's thoughts for the weekend, but I would have thought at the very worst he's going to be in the bench. And he is somebody that can come on and make an impact, which he has done this season on many occasions. Right, we'll talk about the front three. For me, if Alex doesn't play in the midfield three, then he plays wide. So it would probably be Alex, Ross McCausland and Tony Weston. That would be my front three. And I think that's an exciting front three. Ross is very direct. He's very quick. Alex is obviously technically very gifted. Can get at players, can create goals, can score goals. And I'm not really too sure we could say much more about Tony Weston, Scott. I mean, the guy's, he's obviously had a pretty impressive season in front of a goal.
Yeah, he just scores goals, doesn't he?
He does, mate. So what do you think of Ross McCausland? Obviously, a young Northern Irish lad who's come over a few years ago. He's been given his new contract as well. So I think he's here until 2024, I think it is. Ross is obviously very highly thought of at Rangers. Can play through the middle, can play wide. What have you made of him when you've seen him this season?
The couple of times I've been to the away game, the academy game, I've seen him, he scored and he's always played very well. So I actually quite him. He's very direct and he's quick, but he's strong and he's aggressive as well, and he can finish well. He's got two good feet, and I've just liked what he's done. He's exciting to watch. One of these players that gets you his edge of your seat because he likes to go by people. He likes to cut inside and have a shoot, or he can get to Bayern and cross it. So I like what I've seen of Roz, and I know he's still a young boy and learning, but and to get a new contract, like you said, it means obviously they rate him. Folk at the club rate him, and they think they want him to develop more and see where he goes. But what I've seen so far, he looks a very good young player, and hopefully he does just improve and get better next few years, and he does start making pushing into the first team because that's what we all want at the end of the day. But what I've seen about Ross, I really like him. Like I said earlier, I just think he's a very exciting player to watch.
No, he is. I mean, that was one of the things. Like we missed Ross when he was injured because he offers us something a little bit different. I mean, obviously we do have other options at that end of the park. One of the comments earlier was Kane. You've
Yeah,
obviously got Aaron Lyle, who's got great feet, small but great feet, really quick, very direct, just runs at players. And I think that's the interesting thing now. I think maybe a month or two ago, you could have picked to start in the 11 quite simply. I don't think it is just as easy as that now. Like the manager, especially middle to front, there's that many options now, whether that's moving guys up for the 18s into the team or even just looking at how well Aaron's played when Alex has been away with the first team.
yeah,
But since Aaron's come back in there, he's looked really, really good. And he's been scoring quite a few goals recently. And I think that's something that maybe was always talking about with Aaron, that maybe he didn't score enough goals. Because like at the end of the day, when you look at your attacking players, you want them to score goals. I mean, just looking at, I'll see if I can try and scroll up to see the B team top goal scorers. So you've got Tony Weston in 35. He's quite a bit ahead of everybody else. Robbie Ure, who in the main has played for the 18s this year, he has still got 14 goals for the B team,
which is good.
which is great for Robbie's perspective. Juan Alegria, he's always out on loan at Partick now. He
Yeah,
was on 13. Ross McCausland, 13. Cole McKinnon's on 11. Alex Lowry's on 11. Charlie McCann's on 11. So you guys look at that from middle to front. I mean, what's that? 30, 40, 50, 60, 90. I mean, I think that's like 100 goals basically from like your middle to front guys. And that doesn't even include guys like Aaron Lyle, Kane Ritchie Hosler, Chris McKee, Charlie Lindsay, etc. And you're talking about nearly 100
like Chris
goals.
McKee away on loan as well. No, see,
Yeah, but he's away on loan to
yeah, on
Lingfield
the
and been
field,
doing
isn't
pretty well. Yeah, he's been doing pretty well, which is great for Chris. And I think one of the benefits now of some of the younger guys going to Northern Ireland are now getting into a full-time environment with some of these
Yeah,
teams. Obviously, Glentoran and Larne and Lingfield have went full-time, so the boys are in training every single day. I know the argument would be is the standard as good as, say, maybe like a Scottish Championship? I don't know. I mean, I don't watch enough Northern Irish football to know that. But from Chris's point of view, he's been over there. He's done, I think he's averaging like a goal every second game for Lingfield, which is
that's
fantastic.
a step up for low in League Willie, so it's going to improve
Oh,
him that way.
I think that's what you would say. I know the argument would be that, you know, would Tony Weston be beneficial going to Northern Ireland? I mean, probably not, but that's not to say that every player's in the same development pathway and every
No,
player looks at things the same way. So you have to kind of accept that. From my point of view, um, it's interesting now with the full-time teams in Northern Ireland, and is that beneficial for a club like Rangers to now look at guys like Lewis McKinnon and Ross McCausland and think about sending them out? Because somebody like Lingfield, if they won the league, playing Champions League qualifiers,
yeah,
like they play, and obviously, if they get knocked out in the Champions League qualifiers, which they generally do, they'll drop into the Europa League qualifiers. And then if the worst comes to the worst, they might end up making it into the conference group stage.
yeah.
So could you
So
imagine
still getting
sending
that
out?
national
Aye,
experience, well, European experience.
that's what I'm saying, mate. So if you were to send Ross out on loan, for instance, he could end up playing in Europe. He could end up
If
playing.
Ross went there and done well, he could end up getting called up to the Northern Ireland team as well.
What's interesting with Chris, I mean, I expect Chris to be called up to the Northern Ireland under 21s tomorrow.
Aye,
I mean, if Chris keeps scoring goals in Northern Ireland, there's nothing to say that he couldn't end up in the Northern Ireland team or the squad. You know what I mean? That's how, if you're scoring goals, and Northern Ireland don't have a huge selection of players to pick from in the overall scheme of things, mean, sort of Ross could be in the same boat in a few years' time.
Well, that's
So,
Charlie being called in, isn't he? Charlie McCann. He's not done a lot of first team games.
I mean, I would imagine Charlie will probably be in the under-21 squad when I think it's tomorrow it officially gets announced. I dare say the players know by now if they are called up or not, but I think it's official tomorrow. Right, we've got a wee question from James. Does Rory Wilson or James Graham not feature for the B team? Both have played for the B team this season at times. Rory wasn't able to play until he was 16. So Rory's only recently turned 16, but he has, been in the bench a few times and has come on. James has played as well. He's played wide. But in the main, both of those guys have played for the 18s this season, which is really the group that they were always going to play in. At the end of the day, like Rory was scoring goals for fun when he was 15 in the under 18s, but he had to wait until he was 16 to play in the actual Lowland League itself. Rory's an exceptional goal scorer. I mean, there's not really much more you can say about Rory. Yeah, again, the kind of talk at the moment is that Rory could be leaving. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. Obviously, you hear a lot of things about a lot of young players that could be on the move here, there, and everywhere. And I think, obviously, as we've talked about before, the impact of Brexit has meant that there's probably more English scouts up here watching games in Scotland than ever before.
Yeah.
And so any talented young Scottish player is going to have offers on the table now from English clubs because they can't just go out and sign the French players, the Dutch players, the Spanish players, the Italian players, the German players at 16. They would need to wait until they're 18 now. So that obviously changes everything for clubs in Scotland.
Has Rangers offered them a new deal, do you know?
I would imagine Rangers have definitely offered them a contract. I mean, like Rory's probably one of the most talented kids at the academy.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if somebody comes in and offers a lot of money, it's hard to criticise kids. Like Billy Gilmore's did it. Deary Mabudi obviously did it as well when he went to Manchester City. But then, you've also seen the other side of the coin where, you've somebody like Charlie Lindsay who had the opportunity to sign for a lot of English clubs but chose to sign for Rangers. Obviously, Leon's now signed 2 contracts when he's probably had the opportunity to go somewhere else. So it's up to the individual, at the end of the day. So I'm not going to sit here and be critical of Rory or anybody else when they get an opportunity of a lifetime. And I think that's just how it is. Are the bigger? Yeah. I mean, yes, EGM, pretty much. I mean, there's always a lot of scouts at academy games. That's just how it is. I mean, like Kerr will tell you the same thing. Unfortunately, even at Preston, there'll be bigger clubs sniffing about there. There'll be bigger clubs sniffing about QPR. There'll be bigger clubs sniffing about Sunderland and everywhere else, isn't it? I mean, it's just the nature of football, Kerr.
It is, and I remember being at St Mirren years ago, and the scouts used to sit out there. The scouts for our team used to sit outside the gates at St Mirren down at Ralston and try and talk to the kids, stop the kids, parents in the car and talk to the kids. You want to come here? It's kind of like dog eat dog, but if they think they can get a better kid for one team to another, even through channels, it's maybe not appropriate, but that's what other scouts for other clubs do because they're trying to manipulate and get all the best guys from one area, and then nobody else can touch them. Doesn't mean they're going to get a game with that team, but just try and bring on the best talent. And if 1 or 2 make their first team, they're happy with that. But guys like Rory but it'll be not just Rory, it'll be other players like even like Rory. People who are watching him now thinking, is he going to sign a new deal or not because what he's done and because he's had the headlines. So, and you've seen it with Nathan Patterson, didn't you? As soon as a few first team games for Rangers, Everton came sniffing. So it's hard for kids to knock back money. It's hard for anybody to knock back money. Well, it doesn't matter if you're young or old, but these young guys, if they get a chance to even go to English Premiership, it's very difficult to turn down no matter what age you are.
No, look, at the end of the day, as I say to other people, Rangers sign players for other clubs as well and take them. So it's not like that every player that's within the Rangers academy has just come through the academy at Rangers. They've generally been picked up. Guys like Josh McPake, Murray Muller, they've come in from other clubs. You know what I mean? So these guys haven't just been at Rangers their entire career. We picked up Tony Weston for Blackpool. It is a kind of dog-eat-dog world in it. I mean, Rangers can probably offer more money than what Blackpool can. So Rangers managed to get Tony Weston. And that's just how it works. Just like, I'm sure the offer that Billy Gilmore got and that Deary got to go to Chelsea and Man City was more lucrative than what Rangers could put on the table. And that's just the reality of it. I mean, this summer, Rangers will recruit. You know, we'll recruit some players from Scotland, I would imagine. I think we've already recruited some players from England. So I think that's the interesting one. See,
Yeah.
now, I think I touched on it previously. Do you think we will see Rangers maybe looking at the English market more just because of how many players are in some of the academies down there?
I think you will. But when you look at Chelsea, well, I know Chelsea's got issues at the moment. But you look at Chelsea, City, United, Liverpool. They've got guys in the academy getting really well paid, but are never going to make the first teams. But they're in their 23s and under 18s, and they're all decent prospects. I'm not saying that they're all going to make a living in football, but there's a lot they don't know make United's first team or Liverpool's first team, but they can come up to another team and do really well. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So they will be looking down there, just like clubs are looking up here. We'll be looking down there because there's a lot of players that will be getting released. I might not say they're not going to make our first team, but they might come up to Scotland and play really well. So you just have to look at Calvin Bassey, for example, don't you?
Yeah, 100%, mate. I mean, even somebody like Kane Richie Hosler, Kane was at Manchester City. And I think the way things were going at Manchester City, they just had too many players. And Kane maybe didn't feel like he was getting enough minutes on the pitch. So in the end, he chose to sign for Rangers. So like it works both ways, doesn't it? You
Yeah,
know, I mean, at the end of the day, there's never any guarantees when a player leaves Rangers and signs for an English club that he's going to make it. You know, and that's been the same for a lot of clubs over the last 5 years. You know, the amount of kids that's left, like a Hibs or a Hearts or an Aberdeen or a Kelly or whatever, and went to an EPL team and he's played under 18s for a few years, and then before you know it, he's released and he's back in Scotland. But at the end of the day, the financial aspect of that is interesting. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Because from a kid's point of view, like you never know how far you're going to make it in football. So if somebody comes in and offers you, say, £2,500 a week at 16 years old, 17 years old to sign a 3 or a 4 year deal, you know, that could be worth up to £500,000. I mean, how can
yeah.
you turn that down as a 16, 17-year-old? You know, I mean, we're talking about, you know, life changing money for not just like the boy himself, but for his family.
Yeah. And you
And
know
this is
yourself,
how,
with a lot of these clubs, if they're bigger clubs, they chuck in some incentives that's not really down in paper, but they'll maybe say the parents will give you this, will give you that. They're not supposed to, but that's the way football is because they just want that person over. That's how right. When English clubs offer money for folk in other teams' academy,
yeah.
and they might never make their first team, but they maybe offer 100,000, 200,000 for like 15, 14-year-olds, which isn't right. But if they just want somebody, they know money talks.
Well, I think it was a game we were at. It might have been more than a year ago now, possibly even longer than that, maybe a couple of years ago. I think it was the Rangers under 15s or 16s played Sunderland, and one of the parents that was there that day out watching his son was saying that apparently one of the top English clubs was offered like £1 million for the goalkeeper. And I think in the end he did move.
Right.
But this kid was like 15, 16, and one of the top English clubs off. I mean, can you imagine Rangers paying £1 million for a kid that age now? I mean, that would be like ridiculous news that,
Yeah.
you know, because like we just don't have like the finances to go out and pay that kind of money.
No,
You
the
know
money
what
in
I mean?
English football is ridiculous compared to it's it's like the rich get richer down there, and there's a Premiership and then there's the rest, isn't there? And it's
Yeah,
just money controls quite a lot down, which isn't great. But if you get a contract in front of you and somebody's buying you for £1 million if you're 15, 16, your eyes are turned straight away. But your parents as well, they'll be happy for you, but they'll be happy for themselves because you know they can get benefits out of that as well. So it's hard for young guys because a lot of pressure on young players, no matter where you play. I know they want to do at the end of the day is play football, but when the pressure's on you, some make it, some don't, some make a living elsewhere. But some get turned off of football. I know a few young boys who suddenly just get fed up with the pressure and everything else of football. They don't play the game anymore. They're working or they do something totally different just because it was just too much a mental thing for them. They
yeah.
couldn't hack the fact that they felt all the pressures on them to make this because a lot of them look at it. Well, it's not just for them. They're trying to get a. They end up becoming the breadwinner at 15, 16 in a family, which isn't great for a young person.
It's huge pressure. I mean, there's one of the questions for CGM there. What money does Gilmer get a week at Chelsea? More than some of our. I would imagine Billy probably is more than any player that is at Rangers. You know, I would
Yeah,
imagine
easy.
Billy's on probably a couple of £1 million a year at Chelsea. And yet again, like Billy's just a phenomenal talent. I mean, I think as I've said before, I watched Billy when he was like 14, 15, and he was like the best player on the pitch for like the reserves. You know what I mean? He was playing against men. That was back in the day where some teams did play first team players against us, and Bully was still the best player on the pitch. You know, like Bully could see a pass that even if you were 5 yards away from it, you couldn't see it. But Bully could, you know, he could play it through somebody's legs to see a pass, but you couldn't even see an angle for it. He just had that ability.
Yeah.
And at the time when all the rumours started to come about that, you know, Chelsea were very interested, like you just knew that Rangers had no chance. And yet again, like the rumours at that point is that Bully was on, I don't know, like £5,000 a week, £6,000 a week or something like that ridiculous. But then I think it was going up throughout the years of his contracts. Maybe it was like 5-6 grand, then up to 7 or 8 grand, then up to 10 grand. I mean, like you can't turn that money down, in my opinion. It's just no money that you can look at and turn down. And I think when you look at young players, they do have to think in the short term as well as the long term, because when somebody comes in and offers that kind of cash, how can you realistically turn it down? I don't think you can. And I don't think we should ever be critical of young players for doing that, you know. One of the guys here, he thinks that Bully's on about 40 grand a week. I mean, what an age that is for Bully, you know what I mean? I mean, that's... So like Bully's probably already set for life just with the money that he's earning down there. And at the end of the day, as I said earlier, you certainly can't be critical. Let's see what's saying there. Asked this in another pod, but don't think you've seen it. Since GVB and his team came in, has there been a significant change and improvement to the way the boys are playing and application in games? I don't know if there's been a huge change, Curry. I mean, obviously, Zeb Jacobs has come in from Belgium, and he kind of seems to oversee the kind of under 16s down. He seems to watch a lot of those games. David McCallum, who's obviously the B team coach, he obviously watches a lot of the 18s games. But you've also got Cameron Campbell that's there and Stevie Smith, who do a great job. Obviously, with the B team, you've got Brian Gilmore, who's got an unbelievable amount of experience. Yet again, another guy that came through the academy at Rangers. You've also got Graham Smith, who was obviously a good goalkeeper for many years there. He does a great job. Craig Mulholland's there. Craig Robertson's there. I'm probably forgetting some of the guys. Apologies if I forget. There's just that many coaches up at the training ground now. But it's just like there's so much like goes on up there now. The players are very much catered for in every capacity, you know. And it's probably one of those things, like there's still a lot of criticism that maybe we still don't see enough of the young players. But I think now that like Dave Voss has come in, that Zeb Jacobs has come in, it does feel as though maybe they are trying to change things slowly, and it might be this summer before we really see the full change, because it's no easy to change it mid-season.
No, it isn't, no.
So somebody like Zeb Jacobs, he's maybe sitting in the background and taking notes as to what he would like to see change come the summer. And as I say, there's a lot of players out of contract in the summer at the academy, and there's some players that haven't been offered professional contracts yet for the ones who could turn pro. So that would be interesting from that point of view, because we will have to recruit in the summer, probably for the 18s and for the B team. There will need to be recruitment. And I think that's something that, as a club, you probably wouldn't want to do too much, but I think this summer we will see a decent amount of players coming in. And obviously the recent like sort of connections with the sort of Kinetic Academy and Pulse Academy down in England are quite interesting. That's quite a big thing in England now, isn't it? These kind of academies out with the main clubs.
Yeah, it's just another way I try to get the best talent out with your area. But when you've got money, you can do things like that. It's because there's so much involved in it, and it's because a lot of clubs in England, especially even Premiership clubs, they know that money's not always going to be there. It's no because if Sky Money get took away from English football tomorrow, a lot of clubs would be in difficulties because they depend on that every season. So I think they have to look at young players, and I think we have to start. I know we want it. A lot of guys, a lot of supporters want it as in yesterday, but it's not possible. But I think if you're going to play any young players at all, you better put them at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Because it gets them bedded in, and then when the season starts to get going and games get tougher and you're involved in tournaments, they've got a bit of experience in the first team, but pushing them in at that stage of the season is difficult on the manager. It's also difficult in the young lads coming in. So I think you better put them at the start of the season till they get to know the way the team plays, get to know their teammates. And then halfway through the season, I think a quarter into the season, you'll see these guys pushing for a place, maybe even keeping a place. And then it saves you going out and maybe spending £500,000 or £250,000 on a player
course.
because you've got maybe Alec Lowry there that could play every week, or Charlie McCann, or somebody else for the academy, like even Tony
Yeah,
Weston playing it. Do you know what I mean? So we're going to have to do that because we can't always go out and buy ready-made players because one, financially we can't do it, and two,
yeah.
I think for ourselves we want to bring in younger players. Plus, if you do well, you know yourself, you'll get money back for them, and you just keep investing because it's just the way football clubs try to work now. But I like to see if the next start of next season. I know there's still a bit of this season. There's a lot of this season left, especially next month. But like Alec Lowry pushing for a first team game every week next season, and Charlie McCann being involved, even Leon King, Tony Weston, Cole McKinnon, and a couple others. But I think next season, I think Alec Lowry will probably play more games than he doesn't play because I think he will be involved if he continues to push the way he's going because it doesn't look out of place, Wally. It doesn't look out of place at all.
There's a very quick question there for Alfredo. Good to see you, Alfredo. Can't believe we let go young Coombs, Deary, Mabudi, and other talents. It's a hard pill to take. In terms of Nathan, I think it became clear. I don't know if this was clear to a lot of people. Obviously, sort of going to the academy games, you maybe see things a wee bit clearer at times. It certainly seemed like Nathan wanted to go home. And I think the opportunity to go to Brentford was just one that kind of was mutual between the player and the club. Nathan did a good job at Rangers. I don't think anybody could dispute that. Clearly a talented young player. Rangers got a fee for Nathan, and I think there's a future sell on as well, and like additional bonuses as well. But I think with Nathan, it was just one of those ones where, he wanted to be closer to home again. I think being up here and like going to the private school and stuff like that Rangers had paid for, I think in the end it just made more sense that Nathan was going back home. Deary was one of those ones that probably several months before his contract was running out, there was already a lot of talk that he'd already kind of decided he was going to Manchester City. And in the end, obviously, he did sign. And yet again, there's been talk since then that, that they helped his brother Dapple get a move to Watford. Yet again, don't know if that's true. These are things that's been kind of spoken about with different people. If that's the case, then basically you've had two young guys that's got a move down to England and are probably better off financially. So yet again, it's hard to be critical. But yet again, since then we've added Tony Weston, who's actually probably scored more goals than what Nathan did. So it's trying to strike that balance, isn't it? And obviously, when we lost Deary, we added Charlie Lindsay kind of thing. So it's like one in, one out, and that's just how it works at the academy, isn't it?
Remember, some of these guys have agents in their ears at a young age as well, saying, "I'll get you this, I'll get you that." So that can play havoc with their mind, and they don't end the day. They just go with what their agent tells them, unless obviously a lot of the parents get involved and say, "I don't want an agent at this age." But especially coming from a place like Nathan, I heard that Nathan wanted to go back down to England. If that's the case and you're young, you want to go back to England because you're homesick or just be closer to your family, then there's nothing you can really do to stop that. You just have to just agree to let them go.
There's another one of the ones for CGM. He's saying, look at the way Chelsea have done things. They hoovered up anyone and everyone that showed any potential and loaned most of them out and cut the deadwood every few years. Yeah, look, teams like Chelsea and Liverpool and Manchester City can probably carry a lot of players. I know Liverpool maybe don't do it to the same extent, but they're able to because of the financial side of things. I think Chelsea mastered it. When you look at some of the players they've managed to bring through, it's obviously worked for them. If you even just look at Billy Gilmer, I think in the end Rangers got between $500,000 and $1 million for Billy. But what's Billy's worth now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when you look at somebody like Mason Mount, I know he's gone through the Chelsea Academy from start to finish. He's kind of one of the few, but what's his worth to Chelsea? So even if just one or two of these guys make it, it's well worth spending the 10 million a season to bring in all the best players.
You'd have wondered, Willie, but if they had been in the first team, if they didn't have that sanction in place at that time, then Frank
Probably
Lampard
not. I
was the
mean, this is
manager
always...
because he had to go with him, didn't he? He didn't really have any other options to go out and buy. So he gave these boys a chance, and a lot of them have paid dividends, especially Mason Mount. Billy's done really well, but he's on them out in Norwich. I'm not sure if that was the best move for him because Norwich are always kind of more defensive than they're offensive, but a lot of these guys, if Chelsea were under Mourinho and that, Chelsea wouldn't have been giving them a chance, could have been spending money, but at that time they couldn't. So they gave these guys a chance, and a lot of them took it.
Yeah. I'll just look at some of the other questions. We'll obviously, we were thinking about 45 minutes maximum tonight, so we're obviously kind of getting close to that time. Or another one for Curry much. It'd be great to get bigger exposure for our youth development. Fans are really in the dark. I can't disagree with that, mate. This is something that, that's why I enjoy doing the updates on Twitter. It's why I started doing these pods for people that are interested. I try to kind of get information out as much as I possibly can. Clearly, there's some things that I can't say that I know, but I'm not allowed to say. So, there's a kind of time and a place for things that can be said and can't be said. But I think this year's been good for a lot of players, especially in the Lowland League. I think it's helped develop some players. But I think in other cases, some players could have been out on loan and maybe played at a higher level. One of the guys talking about Ryan
Sorry, Willie. Do you think the
No?
club should have gave maybe like, I don't know if you subscribe to RTV or if you're a season holder, you could watch the youth games on RTV for nothing?
I think like the Saturday at 3:00 thing's still an issue, I believe, for Rangers. Like they're not able to show those games live. But I think any other time they can be made live. So I think that was one of the issues. I think maybe next season Rangers can maybe look at maybe like sort of changing the time of a kick-off to allow more supporters to watch games. So yeah, again, these are kind of things we've spoken about, kind of off camera. Maybe Rangers could look at doing things differently so that more fans can watch the games if they can't be at them.
Or even just a smaller price then, because I think a lot of people would. I like to watch them, and I try and get them online if I'm unable to go. But maybe some of the comments here, and I know speaking to other people, they just like to watch young guys playing because you want to see the future players that could be in the first team at one point. Or even
100%.
just like to watch Rangers play football. Doesn't matter what level it is, like you do yourself. So I think the club are missing a trick not putting the games out. I know it can be difficult because it's Saturday at 3, but every other game should be made available at least in some effort because I think people will watch it.
Yeah, we'll just kind of come on to some of the kind of final kind of comments before we wrap up for tonight. I appreciate Kerr coming on at short notice, mate. Thanks very much.
No bother.
Ryan Hardy, yeah, look, Ryan was somebody that scored a hell of a lot of goals at academy level, and it seems to be that he's now at the club where he's most happiest at Plymouth, where he's bagging a lot of goals, which I'm delighted for Ryan because he was always such a nice lad. I think they called him the Greyhound, I think was his nickname back in the day, because he just kept running, Let's see, what else have we got? Yeah, look, I think a lot of people have said that this season. I love to hear how the B team are doing, and that kind of goes back to what me and Scott's saying. Maybe the club could do more, and maybe next season they will. If we do get back into the Lowland League, there certainly is more that I think the club could do. You would get decent audiences for B team games. I believe they would as well, mate, especially if they're not hitting the same time as the first team.
Yep.
That's the big thing for me. Obviously, a few times this season, the first team's played at the same time as the B team, and that's meant that there's been very, very small crowds at the B team games. So yeah, again, maybe the club could look at that. I know there is certain kind of rules with the Lowland League, so that would maybe be something Rangers and Celtic would need to look at to see if they could change it. Even if they charged £1 for the game, reinvest it back in the B team. Absolutely, mate. I think even if it was like £2.50 or £3, I don't think people would complain if they could watch the game live. Maybe even as much as £5 at a push. Or maybe they could offer, as Kerr said, maybe as part of your season ticket, you can buy a one-off voucher for the whole season. It's like 25 quid or something, or 50 quid. I don't know. Something that would be reinvested back into RYDC. Clearly, Colin Stewart does a phenomenal job. I speak to Colin every so often, although I haven't spoken to him for a while recently, to be honest with you. But Colin's very passionate, and he does a great job for the academy with the investment that that people continue to put in there every single year. It's quite incredible, really.
Yeah.
Have you spoke to players from other clubs on their thoughts about having B teams in their league? Are they happy to get that experience, or there is it? I think it's been a mixture, to be honest, Curry. I think some games we've played. I mean, I know, like, if you were there that day at Bonnyrigg, they weren't exactly too enamoured, were they? I don't think they.
It's like, I don't know if it was because the other team were wearing a Rangers crest in the top, or it was just because they thought because all these young guys were taking a mick. I don't really know what it was, but the fans weren't great at the start, weren't they? Either we were getting a bit of a hassle, but they eventually came round. But I just think. I think it's a Rangers thing. I think everybody sees a Rangers crest, they want to beat them, don't they? Unless you're a fan of the club. But I remember when my son played the Rangers youth team years ago, he was the same. Doesn't matter who they played against. Other teams were getting harder. They were getting quicker, and he had a couple of bad injuries playing against other teams. So I think it's just as soon as you wear that Rangers crest, it's like you got a target in your back, basically, because people want to beat you.
Yeah, I think that day was quite interesting. It was probably the first time that there was a bigger crowd for the opposition than there was for Rangers at an away game. So
Yeah,
it was good that in the end the boys played so well that we basically won the game. Was it 5-2 it finished?
5-2, yeah.
5-2. Like Rangers played some really great stuff that day. And it was funny towards the end of the game they were actually saying that Rangers were good for the Lowland League because
Yeah, they
this
were.
was the first real test that Bonnie Rig had
Remember
during the
then it helped
season.
out all the Bonnie Rig fans were actually Hibs fans as well.
I know that was quite different. But look, at the end of the day, I thought that was one of our best performances this season, to be honest. I thought we were absolutely excellent that day. Let's see. What are the chances of getting back in the Lowland League? From memory, I think the vote's the 21st of March. I maybe need to double check that, but I think that's the vote that would either, allow Rangers and Celtic back in there, or they would vote against it.
Just
I
think they'll
hope.
vote. I don't think they will because I think a lot of these clubs made more money with the
Well, that's the thing,
fans going.
mate. Like clearly finances obviously play a part, and some of these
Aye.
clubs have had higher crowds with Rangers and Celtic at them than they've had in any other game over the season. So, yeah, look, let's be honest about it. In every walk of life, money talks.
Aye.
So there's always a chance that will play a part in the decision that's made on the 21st, I believe it is. Let's see, what else have we got? There should be no promotion and relegation from the 2B teams in the Lowland League. Well, I think the thing is, obviously, sort of the B team can't win promotion anyway from the Lowland League. And being totally honest, Rangers and Celtic should be up there or thereabouts because some of the teams down at the bottom of the Lowland League, they're not the best. I think there's a lot of junior teams or amateur teams would fancy their chances against some of these teams, to be perfectly honest with you. Just some of the guys talking about the possible cost. I would rather pay a one-off fee for the B team of, say, 50 quid than pay for my gels. I mean,
You've got a point.
of course. Any streams that you can watch the games. Also, Rangers TV have obviously shown quite a few of the games this year. I have emailed Rangers Television to ask about this weekend, but I've not had a reply yet.
I know they show you games on YouTube, but you have to go searching at times. Like you see when they play other clubs, however they've played, just search their name.
Yeah.
I don't mean you can watch it live, but you can watch full games back if you want to do that.
Yeah, but it's just something that I think, yet again, the club could look at. Right, I think that will do us for tonight. We've obviously kind of got to the 47-minute stage, a wee bit more than anticipated. Just want to thank everybody yet again for joining in. It's been great. It was something we kind of thought about at short notice tonight. We're happy we did because I think we've got over 300 views just from the 47 minutes. So we're absolutely delighted about that. Look forward to seeing you all on Saturday. If you can get along and support the lads at Ibrox, the tickets are available on the Rangers website if you want to come along. 1 p.m. kick-off. We're just waiting to hear back from Rangers about, maybe being able to get some press access or whatever, maybe get a wee interview or so with somebody. But we'll wait and obviously let everybody know about that as soon as we know. Again, thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll see you all again very soon. Cheers.
Now, if you're at Ibrox on Saturday, pop up and say hello.
Aye, but not to Kerr. Don't give him any abuse, right? See you later, guys. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Bye.